Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And today, look, I've been doing Talk Magic for 3 years. I've interviewed literally hundreds of magicians, some of the biggest names in Magic, world champions, some of the best creative people in the industry. And genuinely, I don't think I've been this excited to do an interview for an incredibly long time. The person who I am speaking to today is a creative powerhouse. If you are a listener of the Black Arts podcast, then you will know who this person is. I made a statement a couple of weeks ago, and I stand by that statement. 2024 is going to be this person's year. He is the best kept secret in magic and mentalism, and he's not going to be a well-known secret anymore because he's going to be out there. He's got a lecture that we're going to be talking about that's happening online. Everyone can attend that lecture. It's going to be amazing. I'm a big fan of his material. I'm a big fan of his magic. I'm a big fan of him as a person, and I can't wait to find out more about him. Guys, I'm super excited to have on Talk Magic today the one and only Jake Keane. How you doing, Jake?
I'm not too bad. I'm feeling a lot better after hearing that. All those lies, those beautiful lies.
It's all true though, man. Seriously, I was filming the Magic podcast today with Lloyd, and I said to him, I said 2024 is going to be your year. Is going to be Jake's year, and he said, I agree. And then he actually added to it, and this is Lloyd, who knows everybody in the industry. He said, honestly, I think that if you're talking about 2023 Creator of the Year, it's a choice between Jake and Angelo Carbone. And the only reason people wouldn't have said your name in that list is because they aren't aware of what you're capable of and how creative you are. And I think that people are going to see that next year, and it's going to start with the lecture that you've got in January, and it's just going to explode from there. I genuinely think that next year, 2024 is going to be your year, Jake. I really do.
That's really, really nice. And that's lovely to hear from Lloyd as well, because that's not the way Lloyd speaks to me. He's usually, he's a bad man.
Yeah,
But
he's nice about
I think there's many other reasons there's many other reasons that I would not be considered in that kind of pantheon, not least of which because I don't put anything out really.
But and this is one of the reasons I want to talk to you about, because this is going to change. You know, people are going to be seeing a lot more coming from you over the course of this next year. And I think that this interview is happening at the right time, because I think that a lot of people are going to be introduced to who you are through this interview. And then they're just going to see your name pop up again and again and again and again and again. And I'm super excited for the success that I know that you're going to achieve, because it's, you know, you're an incredibly nice person, but you're also, you walk the walk. And like, again, I say, if anybody's listened to the Black Arts podcast, you'll know that what I'm saying is 100% factual, because you will literally sit there on a podcast with somebody who I consider to be one of the best creators in magic. Lloyd's no slouch when it comes to creating magic, and you will sit there opposite Lloyd and you will come up with the most insane ideas, literally on air, literally just through having a conversation. You'll come up with stuff that I'm just sitting there listening to this, and I'm like, I wouldn't even think of that in like 10 years. You lock me in a room and you tell me I need you to come up with this. I wouldn't be able to do it. And there's Jake coming up with this literally on the spur of the moment on a podcast. And then you think, well, if this is what he can create in a conversation with somebody without even trying that hard, what are we going to see when he actually is sitting down there and coming up with material? Because, geez, you know, and I can't wait to talk about your creative process and everything. I want to talk about all of this with you. Excuse me. But first of all, for those people that don't know who you are, I want to start at the very beginning. And I want to talk about you and your origin story and how you got into magic. So if you don't mind me asking, Jake, how old are you right now?
Oh, 33.
Really?
33, I think.
And that upsets me so much. You look a hell of a lot younger than that. I would have said mid-20s. Okay. So when did you get into magic? How old were you? Tell me about your origin story. How did that happen?
I will, but it's sadly not the most exciting thing in the world. I think it's a fairly common story. It mostly involves a Paul Daniels magic set with 125 tricks or something in. Um, I've been obsessed with magic since I was about 4 or 5. I remember seeing compilation clips of Copperfield and just absolutely loving it. I think the very actual first magic routine I saw was something to do with doves, which wasn't necessarily up my street, but it was just the feel of it, the appeal of it. When you're that young, just seeing something like that, it switches something in your brain. And I don't know what it was, but I absolutely adored it. And so
Really?
I just asked for every kind of magic set I could. And I think the very first one I got was a Paul Daniels. I think it was the 125 or 150 tricks. There was about 2 or 3 other sets that I ended up getting when I was still in single digits. But I think that was the first one I got around like 94, 95.
Wow.
And honestly, the origin story kind of stuff, there's nothing too special. I I grew up with my nan quite a lot.
Mhm.
I lived with my nan for a little while, and she was a little bit of a grifter. She was kind of into fortune telling in rough council estate pubs, and I didn't realize how much I had in common with my nan until sadly after she had passed. But a lot of the stuff that she did was fundamental mentalism routines and techniques, but mixed with this kind of you know gypsy fortune teller ethos and presentation.
Mhm.
And I wish I had spent more time with her. What in that world. But I used to go to magic conventions when I was younger with her, and it's I don't know. It's a bit of a strange entry into that world, coming at it from the angle of someone who might be a little bit more dishonest than a magician. But that's always stuck with me, and that was her lane, and she enjoyed that stuff. So it is what it is. Um, but I just love the magic, and I love creating. I didn't like following the instructions or the tutorials for magic though, so I just come up with my own effects using all the props. I still have all those old props from the Paul Daniels sets. I found
Wow.
them in a box the other day. All the really crappy plastic gimmicks.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know what it was. I just couldn't pay attention to. I, I couldn't really pay attention to the written instructions. I had a few VHSs that I wore out over the years because it was a bit easier to follow along with them. But I, I think the reason some of my stuff is a little bit different is because I learned probably more so in isolation than some people. When I was a little bit younger, maybe around about 14, 15, 16, I did try and get involved with some older magicians that I'd met at conventions and stuff, and they weren't very complimentary or nice about me, which looking back, I think is a little bit strange to diss on a kid's experimental magic. But I had a bit of a weird attitude towards the magic community for years after that, and I just kind of stayed in my own little lane. Didn't really buy many magic releases. I used to look on the forums and old websites and see what was coming out, and I'd just try and make my own versions of them.
Wow, really? That's so cool. That's a really interesting approach. I don't speak to many people. A lot of people, you said that your journey is very similar to most, but most people I speak to, they get into it with a Paul Daniels set or something like that. But then they say, "Oh, but then I dropped off and I came back to it when I was a late teenager or when I was 20 or something like that." But
Yeah,
you're talking about, hey, I got into it when I was 4, and from that point on, I was obsessed. Which is kind of very different to a lot of people I've spoken to. And also the fact that you've not really had much to do with the magic community, which is a total stark contrast to where you are now, because now, creating content, being a part of the Black Arts podcast, you are firmly entrenched in that magic community. But to hear that, like, through your formative years as you were coming into this industry, that wasn't the case, that's kind of a very different kind of story to a lot of people.
I mean, I always loved the conventions, and I'd go and even when I was a teenager, I'd go to lectures on my own and not really end up speaking to too many people. Just I'd end up booking a hotel on my own and just go on my own, and really did kind of view it as something. I mean, I was super nervous. I hated approaching people. I don't mind approaching laymen, but I just couldn't approach magicians. I don't know what it was. There was obviously some early experiences where people were less than complimentary towards me, and it kind of soured me for a long time. I'd just stay in my own lane, and then I worked in restaurants and bars when I was a late teenager to my early 20s or so. Um, and I would perform magic. I'd do a little bit of gigging, the occasional wedding parties and stuff like that. And I didn't view it necessarily as a career because it was something that I was so passionate about. So I did end up going to, a normal person job. My career progression involved writing and journalism and digital marketing and videography and advertising and really, really boring things.
Wow. That's kind of interesting as well. So I have questions before we go past that period, because obviously, I want to talk about everything. But I have a couple of questions. So you rewinding a little bit. So you talked about how you didn't buy a lot of new releases. You tried to come up with your own methods. One thing that I know about you, and I don't know you as well as I do a lot of people. One thing I know about you is you're very knowledgeable. I know this well, no, you come across very knowledgeable on the Back Arts podcast. Lloyd, who's a very good friend of mine, obviously, talks about how knowledgeable you are. Where did that knowledge come from? Because a lot of the advice given to people that are new into magic is, oh, buy books, buy everything, immerse yourself in all of these classical techniques and methods and principles, because the more you have, the bigger the tool belt you have of these principles and these techniques allows you to then approach situations creatively, kind of. But you're saying that, like, you weren't doing that. So where did that knowledge come from? How did you kind of educate yourself? Was it reinventing a lot of the techniques that later on you found with before, or like where did all of this knowledge come from, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, so I think it is kind of a gray area, that idea of, oh, I'll just make my own version of something that I've seen, because I know that it is looked down upon. I watched a video of yours the other day, actually, where you had a go at someone in the comments because they said, I'll make my own version of a Christian Grace effect, I believe. And so, just for the record, this was when I was a kid, to, like, a teenager. I didn't have much money. I still don't have much money. It was a case of necessity, and I would go to the library, and I was very lucky that the library closest to me, weirdly enough, had a lot of Carl Fulves books.
Wow.
So I think there was maybe 4 or 5 Carl Fulves books that I would continuously just take out and take. And I had what was the book called? Everyone talks about it. It was a big white book, the Encyclopedia of Magic.
Okay. Yeah. There's a few.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
and to be honest with you, I think that I kind of would think that I come up with something, and then I read something similar in another book, and I'd be forced to ask someone on a forum, "Hey, is
Yeah.
this original, or what is this exactly?" So there were a few people that I was kind of close to, but not in the sense that I was very firmly entrenched in a kind of community. It was just fundamentals. I think when I was quite young, in terms of maybe like mid-teens, I'd stumbled across Animan, and
Mhm.
I would just anything at all that I could find of his, I would read. And so many of the fundamentals do come from older mentalism techniques. And then maybe when I was like 17, 18, I learned about Corinda. Um, Richard Osterland as well. The old video series did a lot for me back in the day.
Mhm.
But I think it's just working from fundamentals and then accidentally creating the same effects as some people and being told and going, oh, okay.
Mm. Yeah. I'm totally with you. And in terms of, you said that you did some gigs in early 20s. Um, I want to touch on that if we can, because obviously you did some gigs and then you decided to get a proper job. A lot of people that I speak to that are on through this channel, they believe incorrectly, but they believe that in order to be successful in this industry, you have to be a professional magician. Now, as someone who has and is a professional magician, I think that couldn't be furthest from the truth, because a lot of the time, when you become a professional magician, you sacrifice creativity. You sacrifice that because now you're making money from it. You're paying your bills, so you take it. You may be performing in environments that you don't particularly want to perform in, which means that the magic that you're doing isn't necessarily the magic that you want to do. It's what's best for that audience, for that environment. Might not be best for you and the style that you want to perform. But you took the decision of, hey, I've performed, but that's not what I want out of this industry. Was that a hard decision to make? And kind of were you thinking, well, I can, continue and try and be a creator? Because the other question is, a lot of people come into this industry and they go, oh, I want to be a creator, because we put creators on pedestals. A lot of people come into this industry and go, I want to be the next Jay Sankey. I want to be the next Lloyd Barnes. I want to be the next Greg Wilson, because they see that those people have a certain level of success and notoriety. And, that's why you see so many people rushing effects to market. Oh, I've been in the industry 3 months and I've just marketed my first trick through the Penguin Partner Program. Were you... So I suppose the question is twofold. One, was it difficult to kind of say, I don't think I want to be a performer in this industry? And secondly, you are a creator now, but was that something that you looked at as a viable possibility back in your early 20s, when maybe the platforms that we use to be able to do this sort of stuff didn't exist as much as they do now? Oh, you there, Jake?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry,
Sorry.
might be a little bit spotty.
Yeah, I got you back. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the question, really.
Okay, sorry about that. My internet's a little bit spotty.
That's okay.
So yeah, the style of magic that I tend to lean towards is a more impromptu, social, casual kind of, is it real or not? And that doesn't really vibe well with performing at a wedding gig or table hopping. I'm okay, the traditional sets, the traditional routines. I can do an okay ambitious card, and I don't mind together 5 routine that can perform tables, but in the same joy as when I would perform in the pub or at college to friends. And it's not necessarily a case of, how would you put it? It wasn't a case of being bothered about my passion maybe having to be dampened to make money. It was more just, I didn't think I was very good at it. I thought that I was good at the things that I enjoyed doing, and I didn't think I was very good at the structured kind of reliability of being a worker, being a performer. I just at the time, it wasn't something that was in my skill set. It wasn't something I could happily reach for on my tool belt. I mean, I consider I consider everyone in magic to be a student. I don't trust people who say they're a master to other magicians. If they say they're a master to laymen, they have to advertise that way. That's fine. But if someone says to another magician, "I am a master," I don't trust them. I think everyone has to be a student, otherwise you don't have the right mindset to ever be a master. So I would love to learn. I would love to regain some of those muscles for working, like real work. But it just wasn't something that I was passionate about, and I didn't feel I could put myself into it fully without being passionate. With creating, so obviously in the early days, some of the avenues available now weren't there. I used to share, like, I used to type stuff up, literally on a typewriter. I got a typewriter when I was quite young, and it was something I was obsessed with because I used to enjoy the idea of living inside a Stephen King novel. But I used to type stuff up and share it with other friends who were into magic, like super locally. There was very, very early routines to do with drawing duplications hidden inside pot noodles and like a very, very something that I used to love performing in nightclubs was changing a cigarette into a card. And that was something that I typed up when I was, I think, 17, literally on a typewriter, and I shared with 3 people in college.
Really?
Yeah. I did recently, about a year ago, actually type it up properly and put the PDF available somewhere else. But yeah, I used to share stuff very, very locally to other people who I knew who were into magic.
Oh, wow. And obviously, and we're going to talk about this, but now you are, like I said earlier on in this interview, you're set to be a lot more prolific in 2024, we'll say. How come it took till now? And what I mean is, so you decided you didn't particularly want to be a performer. That wasn't in your skill set. So you went and got proper job. That's great. But you carried on you carried on creating, you carried on learning. Magic has always been your passion. During that period of time where you were working full time and you were also creating, was there a reason you didn't kind of go to a Murphy's or a Penguin or an Alakazam or one of the other routes and go, hey, my name's Drake, I've got this, I want to share it with the community? Was there a reason you kept everything local, or and not kind of tried to go more globally?
Yeah, I think the cold, harsh, honest answer is just because I thought I was really shit.
But you're not. Like, let's talk about that, because one of the things that I think a lot of magicians, both performers and creators, suffer with is kind of imposter syndrome. Having that lack of belief in themselves. It's something that I think that at one point or another, probably everybody has experienced. Is this something that you've experienced through your journey in magic?
Yeah, constantly, every single day. I, it in a certain sense, I don't trust people who aren't a little bit nervous. I mean, yes, it's very, very good to be confident. It's good to know that you are really fucking good at what you do.
Yeah.
But I don't trust people who won't admit that they're not even just a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I mean, you're always learning every single day, right? And I do try and appear confident, especially if I'm performing to laymen. I try and appear as confident as possible. And inside, my stomach is twisting. It always has done. I don't know if that'll ever change, but I'm getting better at ignoring it. Learning not to worry is kind of a lost art. And I mean, I wish I was better at it, but
Is it something that you feel like you've kind of got to the point where you've got over that now, or is it still something that you kind of battle with?
yeah, dude, like I'm battling it right now. I don't know why you're interviewing me.
Because you're amazing. I'm like the biggest Jake Keane fan on the planet.
That's very, very sweet and surreal to hear.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very, very true. It really is. So what made you okay, so let's talk about this. So you've always battled imposter syndrome. What made you kind of go from, because obviously you are planning to do a lot more in 2024. We've got the online lecture, which we're going to be talking about later on. I know that you're organizing other lectures. There's things that you've been working on with Lloyd, things that you've been working on your own, commercial releases that are going to start seeing the light of day. You are now on that upward trajectory as a creator and as somebody who's very well known within this industry. What changed? Because as somebody who's battling with imposter syndrome every day, you made the decision a little while ago to become full-time as a creator, and leave a secure job. What made you decide to do that when you are still battling with imposter syndrome? Because I think talking about that would be a good thing to talk about. I think a lot of people are in the same position as you and might find motivation and inspiration from talking about
So
your.
I think that in the back of my head, I always thought one day I will do something with all of this stuff. One day I'll put something out. I'm just waiting for my time. I'm biding my time, waiting for my moment, and it's eventually going to come. And I didn't realize that you still have to do something. Patience isn't doing nothing. Patience is an active thing. It's having the trust that what you're doing is working, and it's putting in more effort and believing that you're going to get the results you want when you can't immediately see proof of it. Patience isn't sitting there and waiting for something to happen. It's an active thing. And I decided to change my mind about that. I realized that, yeah, it's okay to sit there and wait for something to happen, but nothing's ever going to happen if you do that. You can be patient and try and get as much done as possible. And I had some really nice people, like, you know, Lloyd and yourself, say some nice things. And in reality, it was literally just that. Someone said some nice things about some of my work. I think Lloyd had heard or he'd seen something about a PK touch routine that I had. And we ended up talking about it. He was just like, "This is the weirdest, like, coolest thing I've ever seen. I don't know why anyone hasn't done that with a PK touch before." And I was like, "Wow, thank you. That's really nice." Any form of recognition is just going to make someone go, "Maybe there is something there." But
Absolutely.
I think you actively have to, not in a sense that you're looking for compliments, but you also actively have to look for recognition. And it can come in different forms, right? It can come in just asking for feedback or criticism. But the moment someone just says, "I think there might be something there," it does change a few things in your mindset and the way you feel about stuff. Because I wasn't really sharing anything apart from with laymen when I would perform it on laymen.
Mhm.
I just didn't have any feedback from magicians.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I totally get that. Uh, but what made you? I suppose another question is: we know you primarily as a mentalist. What made you gravitate towards mentalism? Because everything we've spoken about up until this point is magic, and watching doves and getting a Paul Daniels set, and obviously at some point you were like, you know what, the doves and the chop cup aren't really doing it for me. I want to go down a different route.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I love magic. I'm just I don't think I'm a very good performer, so I tend to veer away from it. If you were to look at my magic collection, most of it is magic.
Mm.
I adore traditional magic. I absolutely love chop cup routines, but it's not something that I tend to lean towards my strengths, and I don't think my strength lies in performing that kind of material. I
Hmm.
think my strength lies in bastardizing that kind of material and doing something weird and mystical and mentalism based with it.
And let's talk about that for a minute, because obviously you've mentioned a couple of times in this interview your style of more conversational, more mystical. How do you find your style? For people that are watching this and they're struggling, they buy everything. We know those people. When you first come into magic and you open up the doors and you find somewhere like Penguin Magic and you realize, oh my God, it's a treasure trove, and you're just buying everything just to learn the secret, and you're not learning anything, and you haven't got a character. How do you find, for those people, how did you find your style? How did you know, you know what, chop cup's not for me? What's for me is this. How would you do it, and what advice would you give to somebody that's trying to find their style as well?
Uh, it's such a tough question because everyone suffers with problems to do with their identity,
Mm.
especially if you're younger and maybe you want to attempt to perform something and all you're ever going to do is perform it the same way that you were taught on the tutorial. You're going to put on the adult voice and become a snake oil salesman. Honestly, it's just something. There's advice that you could give to someone about finding an identity and a character and a presentation style, but I think it has to come from them. I don't think there's ever going to be a one size fits all response to that question. You have to find what feels comfortable, find what fits you. It's Goldilocks. I think you'll know if something's too hot or too cold.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
personally, I think that you should gravitate towards what you enjoy because that's going to be where you're most passionate. I do know some people who might enjoy, say, someone enjoys the mentalism aspects of performance, but they tend to lean towards a more traditional presentation as like, here, the magician, the great, whatever. But I don't think that their passion is going to come through much stronger if they're performing the stuff that they actually enjoy, as opposed to what they've been told is surefire.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, 100%. So moving on, let's talk about because obviously you are this underground person that a lot of people haven't heard of because you haven't really shared many ideas to to the whole community. I think the first thing that happened where a big group of people found out about you was the Black Arts podcast.
Hmm.
So where did that come from? Because as somebody who has imposter syndrome, which in many ways is, my opinion isn't as valid as, when you're doing a podcast, that's completely contrary to that, because what you do on a podcast is you're giving your opinion on things. You're telling people, this is how I would do this. This is how I'd approach this. And like I said at the beginning, anybody who's listened to the podcast that you and Lloyd do, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely brilliant. If you're interested in wanting to become a creator, it is the best podcast out there in order to be able to do that. So what made you decide to take that leap? It's true. What made you decide to take that leap and kind of go, you know what, I'm going to set this podcast up. I'm going to go and do this. And then what made you decide to do it with Lloyd? Where did all that come from?
So after I originally first spoke to Lloyd, maybe a year and a half, around about a year and a half ago, maybe, I think was the first time I'd actually spoken to Lloyd, besides maybe bumping into him in conventions or pubs. And we started jamming on some of the things that I had shared with him. And he's just started asking advice for some of the things that he was coming up with. And naturally, we kind of just fell into this routine of taking a couple of hours out of, every week and jamming with each other, showing each other new effects. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but I remember he texted me not long past Blackpool, I think. And he just said, no one ever really sees what it's like when people jam together, when people are trying to create something. It'd be cool to maybe do like a video on that at some point. It's like, yeah, that would be interesting. And then he just said, maybe it'd be a cool podcast. We're doing it anyway. Like once a week, we'll jam anyway. So maybe we should just record it. And so that kind of lessened any kind of pressure, because I still just view it as once a week I get to go and jam with my friend on Magic.
Mm.
And
That's
so,
yeah.
so in reality, I still don't necessarily view it as hosting a podcast, although we will introduce ourselves and sometimes discuss things that are, current or relevant. I mean, I think we've just done a two-parter on the Dynamo special, which is definitely not a weekly jam, but I still just view it as once a week getting to jam with my friend.
Mm. Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that. And let's talk about your creative process then, because obviously the Back Arts podcast was set up specifically to help people that are wanting to be more creative. And it's something that you find, relatively easy, and you have done right from day one when you were trying to replicate tricks that came out and come up with your own ways of doing them. Can you give people any advice on creativity? Because it's the thing that every magician wishes they had, and very few people are able to do.
I genuinely wish that I could give better advice. I wish I was a smarter person. I tend to ramble when I'm asked a question, and whether or not there's any kind of value in those ramblings is up for interpretation. People might have to sift through some word salad to come up with some words that might help them. But I think most people don't realize that creativity doesn't just come from one source. When people wake up in the morning and they say, I'm going to be creative today, and they might struggle with that, they're probably attacking it from one source. They've probably got a blank page in front of them with their pen, just twiddling it in their fingers. And creativity has many wells that you can plumb, and none of them are ever going to be completely dry. I have created effects because I heard a line in a movie that I thought sounded interesting, and I thought that would make a really good opening hook for a script, something along those lines. The general feel of what that guy has just said on the screen would make a good hook. But I have also created tricks where I've just noticed the way something like I've looked at an object over there. There is what is that? An incense holder over there, and the
Okay.
way that the light is hitting it is really pretty. That incense holder would kind of look cool if there was maybe, I don't know, maybe if you put a card inside it, maybe you could do a cool impossible location thing with it. Maybe it could become a switch device. It, it can come from so many different sources. It isn't just a blank page. I think taking notes is important, but taking notice is also really, really important. If there is something that excites you that doesn't necessarily feel like it's a magic effect, if you just really like the way two objects interact with each other, that's a satisfying noise that those things make when you shut them closed.
Yeah.
Creativity comes from so many different sources, and it isn't just sitting down in front of the computer or a blank piece of paper.
Wow.
I,
So,
I, I wish I had better advice. I wish I was better at speaking. I'm
no,
not. I'm so sorry.
you are, and your voice is very hypnotic in a good way, in really good way. But because the thing that most magicians struggle with when they're creating is the initial inspiration.
Mm.
That's the thing that most people, a lot of people have moves and they can go, well, okay, I do a double lift to do that, or I do this to do that. But it's that initial inspiration. It's that initial germ of an idea, and you've just said, sit up and take notice. Is there anything else that people can do to find that inspiration for that?
Yeah, I think when something is really attractive to you, when something sounds cool or interesting, or the hook just you can't get it out your head, that doesn't immediately have to become an effect. That goes into a library, whether it's in your head or whether it's in a notebook. If in 2 years' time you might think, "Oh, I've just discovered this weird way I can move the cards so the when a spectator thinks they've selected this card, they're actually being given this card. That's a kind of cool move." Oh, wait a second. If I go back through my little library of cool ideas, there was a really good opening line to do with a lighthouse. Maybe if I just try playing with those two together, and I think not everything has to be utilized straight away. When someone writes a novel, when someone writes a short story, very often it will go in a drawer for 6 months before they can be bothered finishing it off, before they think, okay, I can put this all together now, I can do the editing. And there is a huge rush to you wake up one morning and realize, oh my God, I've just realized if you press this button on your phone, it gives you access to this information. I have to do something with it right now. But it will probably be a better idea if you wait a little while and then think, oh, but if I combine that with this coin trick, which sounds weird, but if I combine that with this coin trick that I've been working on, then in 6 months' time, I might have something really cool where it looks like the coin has read the spectator's mind.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm not an advice giver. I'm a shambles of a man.
No, you're not. You're not. Anybody who listens to the Black Arts podcast will know that that's absolutely not the case. And as somebody who's going out and lecturing soon, you've got multiple lectures lined up. What is a lecture if not standing in front of people giving them advice?
Yeah, well, let's hope that the advice is valuable.
I think it will be. I really do. One more question about creativity. When you create, you've talked a lot about jamming with Lloyd. How important is it to have somebody else there to aid that creative process? And I ask genuinely because most of the stuff that I create is done in isolation. I'll
Yeah.
show it to people after the fact. So I'll say to Lloyd, hey, I've just had this idea for this any card at any number where every single card's blank except for the card they pick. What do you think? And he might tweak it or something, or somebody that I go to might say, yeah, that's a good idea. But I try to flesh it out and make it where I want it to be before I go and seek advice. While your approach is, hey, we're going to jam together and we're going to come up with something like how important is it to have that creativity partner, for want of a better word?
I think I mean I think you can do both because a lot of the things that I create I will create in isolation,
Mm-hmm.
and then I will bring it to someone, I will show it to them and ask their advice, ask for help if there's anything they think, is there another stage that could be added, is there another phase that would make this reveal better. I I do create in isolation a lot, but I also enjoy creating with a partner, whether that is Lloyd or whether that is someone else. I'm working on a billet project at the moment with someone else. It's just, it gives a little bit of variance, a nice little bit of texture to your work if you can do both, I think. I working with a partner, I find easier because we can bounce ideas off each other at twice the rate, pretty much. So it isn't just about getting ideas quicker because there's two of you. It also means you can get rid of ideas quicker because both of you can veto things. Both of you can say, no, that's shit.
Yeah.
And I think everything becomes a little bit more well-rounded when there's a different viewpoint applied to it and someone else takes a look and thinks about it and sees whether or not there is a different use for something. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's the old adage about there being too many cooks, and that can be true too. I think we've probably all seen effects where, you know, 4 or 5 people have been involved with the creation of it, and it didn't really go so well because they're pulling and tugging at different angles, and someone else wants to focus on a certain part of it, while someone else thinks this is the stronger element of the effect. It can go both ways, but I think when you create with someone else, when you have a partner that you enjoy being creative with, in that sense, I can only think of positives for it, unless it's two egos battling, in which case you shouldn't be working together anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's really good advice as well. One more question on that. You're very lucky insofar. I imagine Lloyd's the person that you create with the most. Lloyd works Murphy's magic. He's completely 100% trustworthy. I've spoken to magicians in the past and they've gone, "Oh, I never create with somebody because somebody went and stole my idea."
Yeah.
How do you avoid that happening? You know, when you're creating something together, who gets the credit for it? You know, unfortunately, not everyone can be a David Jonathan Nicholas Mavresis where they have this creativity partnership. Not everyone can have somebody like Lloyd who's as honest as the day is long. Like, what do you do if you've met somebody at a magic convention and you go, "Hey, let's jam on ideas," and you know, to protect yourself and your idea, you know?
You know, unfortunately, there's not much I have been able to do because it's only a situation that I have had happen to me fairly recently, maybe the past 6, 7, 8 months.
Mm.
There have been a few people who I have kind of entrusted routine ideas with who have then found out have went on to do something with it. Um, I can't give advice because it's something that I am going through in many ways with a few different things. Very, very recently, I have had to shut the doors on this, you know, anyone being allowed into the creative process when it's with an idea that I care about. Very, very recently, I've had to shut the doors on a few things. I wish I could give advice. I don't know what to do. I would love advice. Please tell me. What do you do, Craig? I don't know who to trust because I
Well,
keep getting
I've
bent.
already told you, I kind of create, you know, my own little bubble, you know.
Yeah.
It's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. And if I'm working on if I'm working on somebody else's project, I've normally been brought in specifically as somebody who's working on. It's not my So like you know, I've just this movie quiz has just come out with Jamie Williams. It's Jamie's idea, but I got bought into, you know, flesh it out a bit. Same with ProCaps with Lloyd, you know.
Yeah.
So normally I'm on my own, so it's not a problem. It's not really an issue, but I can understand why it would be an issue.
Yeah. I mean, especially because we do the podcast, right? And I understand in my heart that anything I say on the podcast is essentially open source now. I have no qualms with that. If I mention something, if me and Lloyd accidentally come up with an amazing idea, then do with it what you will. That's just out there. And that is my kind of that's my outlet for the things where I'm not too sure about them and things that are a bit more experimental, and that's fine. But I have been applying that same mindset to when I just have a normal conversation with someone without knowing if they're very trustworthy, which is so it's a lesson I have learned very recently that maybe I should be a bit more careful about what material I share.
Mm-hmm. I'm totally with you. I totally get that.
I
And that,
I have very, very recently heard about some products coming out and a few different things that unfortunately maybe I shouldn't have shared those ideas.
oh man, yeah. And that's the problem with this industry. That can be a problem. Like I said right at the very beginning, everybody wants to be a creator. You
Yeah.
know, everybody wants to have that notoriety. Everybody wants to walk into the magic shop and see their name on a product that's sitting there, you know, for many different reasons. And unfortunately, there's people that will take shortcuts in order to get there. And that's always been an issue.
I try and look at it through the lens of, well, I guess it's a compliment. That idea must have been good, so maybe I'm okay at what I'm doing. And I also try and look at it through the lens of, if someone is that creatively bankrupt that they have to run with someone else's idea, then maybe I should just feel bad for them that they can't come up with their own stuff and let it be. You know, there's going to be another idea tomorrow. The podcast is a prime example of my ideas aren't sacred, because we come up with a bunch of them every single week, and any of them could go on to be something. Maybe not the really shit ones, but you know, anything could go on to be something. And I shouldn't be so attached to some of these ideas or consider them sacred. If someone takes it and there's nothing I can do about it, that's on them. It's nothing to do with me, man. I think it's very hard not to worry about what might happen. You know, I like to think about it. The past is gone. All that really matters is right now. People borrow a lot of grief and sadness from the future, from things that might not even happen. So I like to deal with what's going on now and experience what's going on now. I'm talking to Craig Petty, one of the most, you know, successful magic creators of all time, and we're having a gorgeous chat about some of the things that are most important to me in life. So I'm not going to really bother too much about tomorrow and whether or not some, you know, stormy, hazy character might steal something.
That's a great attitude. It's a great attitude to take. It really is. Let's talk about your lecture, because that's coming up soon. I've got a ticket. I can't wait to see this lecture. I really can't. Can we talk a little bit about it? Because this is kind of, I was going to say this is your coming out, but that's ridiculous. This is kind of your bursting onto the scene. This is you. You know, you've been very much behind the scenes. You've slowly kind of let people see who you are through the podcast. But this is you. Lloyd's name's not attached to it. No one's name's not attached to it. This is you. I am Jake Keane. I am a creator. This is my material over 2 nights virtually, which means anybody can access this from all over the world. What made you decide to go with the down the virtual route? What made you decide to have this lecture now, and what can we expect?
So in early November, not long after my birthday, I was still working full time in advertising, marketing, social media, videography, all that kind of stuff. I was still working full time, but this was also the first job I'd had in house in about 13 years, because I used to do all that stuff self employed. I had my own company.
Oh, wow.
But after COVID, I kind of decided maybe I should keep things a bit more secure and stable. The salary might be less, but I know that I'm going to be getting a certain amount each month. So for a year, I worked in this place in an office. Sorry, one sec. I'm a little bit under the weather. Sorry.
That's okay. Sorry.
I worked in this office for about a year and I hated it. I hated the boss. I hated most of the people there. And I'm a very loving person. I try and see the best in people, but these guys were scumbags. They were sleazeballs. And working there literally made me want to kill myself. So in early November, I said that to the boss. Working here makes me want to kill myself. I'm going to walk out the door and you'll never see me again. I proceeded to go and have a breakdown whilst walking down the street and realized, oh, I literally have no savings. I can't pay my rent this month or next month. I can make none of my bills. I have screwed myself over so royally, but also a huge weight had lifted because I wasn't worried about going into work the next day. And I think some people might be a bit annoyed that I am advertising myself so much at the moment. You know, every single day on Instagram and Facebook, I'm posting stuff. This is happening at this time. I'm doing this. I've got this coming out in a week. But I am just trying to survive, dude, and I'm gonna do that whether you like it or not.
Don't ever apologize for putting yourself out there. I mean, that's all I've done. That's what Magic TV is. Magic TV is a platform to allow people to see who I am. You know, yes, I'm giving advice, I'm giving support, I'm giving guidance, I'm sharing stuff just like you do. But it's also a way of me saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. So when something comes out, people feel confident buying it off me because they kind of know who I am.
Yeah.
Putting yourself out there, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially as this is what you do now. You're a creator. You have to. You've been in digital marketing for years. You've been in marketing. Creating a brand is so important. And telling people what you're up to and shouting it from the rooftops, that's one way to develop that brand.
Yeah. So in part, the deciding to do the lecture was, you know what, I need to get started. I need to put the first footsteps somewhere. And I'm just going to do this every week. Me and Lloyd end up talking for an hour or two where we are talking to each other, but at the same time, we're talking to an audience. I know that I am kind of capable of talking for a decent amount of time. And maybe if I structure it into some of my favorite stuff that I've came up with over the years, maybe it'll be more focused and direct and there won't be as much scouse rambling. So maybe I can do a lecture, man. And it was just, I have no presence or reputation, so I'm not going to go to a magic club. I'm just going to do it myself. And realistically, I don't mind saying it. If I do it myself, I get to keep the money.
Yeah.
And I'll get paid more than if I went to a magic club. And I don't think anyone will mind me saying that. Nope. It is something that I am selling. It is a product.
Exactly. No, not at all. Not at all. And obviously the thing about doing it virtually is that anybody from all over the world can see you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you live in the UK. UK is a very small market when it comes to magicians. There's many, many more magicians all over the world. And by doing this virtually, you're reaching everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the idea of dipping my toes in the water virtually because as I've mentioned in the past, I am a nervous person. I get imposter syndrome constantly. If it's in front of a layman, I'm quite happy performing. I can turn on the charm. In front of magicians, I get terrified. So let me do it virtually the first time. Just let me off this one time.
Yeah, totally. 100%. And so it's a 2-day lecture. And what can we expect?
Well, what you can expect and what you get might be two different things, but I'm hoping that there is some value in some of the things that I have to say and some of the effects that I have to teach. Because it is my first kind of entry into this world, I am fully loading it with everything that I possibly can. So, whether you find any value in the more theory-based stuff, I know for a fact there's going to be a couple of effects in there that you like at the very least. There is card stuff, there is billet-based things, there is coin, there is some coin magic in there, strangely enough. I am not much of a coin magician, but I do have a few routines that aren't sleight-based and weirdly make coin tricks become mentalism or mysticism. There are a few standalone effects. There are things that can be worked into other routines. There is theory around openers. There is theory around how you can get the most out of a deck of cards. Card economics. What you can do to get the most effects with the least amount of effort. There's a lot of theory in there, but there is also a lot of effects that I am trying to. I mean, you gave me the advice. I asked you maybe 2 weeks ago or so, what advice would you give to someone who is giving a lecture and doesn't want people to fall asleep during the more boring parts? I say boring because some people can't stand theory. But I assume that if you're coming to watch the lecture, then you know what you're getting into and you know the type of stuff that I like, where it might get a little bit more artsy and wanky at times, but I'm still going to provide some material that can be used.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've really loaded this lecture down and then some. I mean, over 2 days, that's, it's kind of a great way to say, here I am, this is what I do.
Yeah, maybe it'll be my only shot. I might get shunned by the community straight afterwards, so I might as well go full. I might as well go the whole hog.
I very much doubt that. I very much doubt that.
Fingers crossed.
And before we actually talk about anything else, where can people buy tickets?
Oh yeah, it's literally just jakekeane.com.
JakeKeane.com.
Yeah. I'm assuming in the title to this video you'll have my name so people will know how to spell it. But it's literally just jakekeane.com. That takes you to a link tree. The very top link just says lecture tickets. You can purchase it from there. There's a few other links on there, but go explore it if you want.
Excellent. JakeKeane.com. And the date of the lecture is?
It's the 6th of January and the 7th of January, which
first
is
weekend in January, Saturday and Sunday.
That's it.
And
at 7 p.m. both nights.
Till when?
UK time. So the first night will be around about an hour to an hour and a half. From 7 till about 8:30, maybe. The second night will probably be from 7 till about 9, 9:30. A little bit longer.
Okay, cool. Brilliant stuff. And will it be recorded?
It will be recorded. I'll probably make those details available as and when, but I assume I will. If people enjoy it, then I'll put it up.
Because also, I know that you can also get the lecture notes if you want to as well, can't you? Like,
oh yeah, I wish I had a copy to show you right now.
I have the lecture note package because I'm super excited about getting my lecture notes.
I'm really excited about the lecture notes. I started writing the lecture notes first, and they ended up actually becoming more of a kind of a small book. I think they're about this thick. They're a little bit more than some lecture notes. There's definitely a lot more in there than some lecture notes. The stuff that I might cover in the actual event will be explained way more in depth in the notes.
Wow, that's so cool. That's amazing.
So I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. So you got the lecture in January. What else have you got? Of course, I know that you have an online thing that allows you to divine a star sign. Is that right? That you did with Lloyd?
Oh yeah, that doesn't have to be online. That can be in person. It works.
Yeah, sorry. What I mean is, yeah, that's there's a star sign divination. I don't know what I'm allowed to say about that because Lloyd showed it me a few weeks ago. I don't know if it's been announced. I'm trying to be very vague.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It needs a little bit of vagueness around it, but what does every mentalist release? They release their own star sign divination. Me and Lloyd kind of came up with this version that I think it's really cool. It's super simple.
Lloyd showed me the method. It's bloody genius. He did it on me, and I had no idea. I was like, that's not even part. And I say it was online because he did it to me over the phone. Like that's like you don't even have to be in the same room as somebody. It would obviously be perfect to do in a gigging situation and an informal situation. But Lloyd rang me up and did it with me over the phone and said, "Hey, you gotta show something." I was like, "How the fuck did you do that?" I had no. I think I'm fairly well read about stuff, but I just didn't even have a place to start with. I was like, I wouldn't even know where to begin to think about coming up with a method for this.
Yeah, it's a really strange one because of how simple it is, but how badly it can fool certain people. At London Magic Convention, I showed a few of your guys. I showed Nemid, I showed Matt. I think they enjoyed it. I think they liked it. I told Matt he can feel free to use it at any point if he wants to. But yeah, that's called Zodiac. That should be coming out in about, I'm hoping, the end of January, start of February.
Is that going to be released through yourself, or is that going to be released?
Yeah, that's going to be self-published. That's just me and Lloyd putting something out there. It's going to be it's a physical, it's a book, and the real value I think lies in, okay, here's this really simple effect that you can do. The book is going to tell you 15 routines that you could 15 ways you can do it completely differently. And because the method is so simple, so open, and is over so quickly, literally like that, it gives you room to play with presentation and narrative. And so whatever style you have, it gives you a way to fit it into that style. You don't have to focus on any kind of procedure, or there's no hard work. You know what star sign they are thinking of or what star sign they are. And so you can focus on how you tell that story. What the false method is that you're presenting to them, you can focus on that. I think that's where the value lies in it.
Yeah, it's genius. It really is. It's genius. So that's going to be out as a physical book.
Yeah.
Are you planning on like are there other? I know you showed me something before the camera started rolling, which was bloody amazing.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm really excited about that. Like, Are you going to be self-publishing other stuff? Are you going to be working with other companies? Like, what's the plan for 2024 for you?
I mean, I am quite happy to try everything. I have no qualms about whoring myself out if I am able to. If I'm able to, I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to try provide something in every area of magic and mentalism that I feel comfortable. And I know that I have enough things that I can cover a lot of different bases. Whether or not they are eventually sold is another thing, but I know I have physical products that would make good commercial magic. And I know that I have more niche stuff that would make a good self-published PDF. I'm going to try everything that I'm confident in. I'm going to try. And there are, I mean, at the moment, I have a very small membership. It's called the Real Underground, and I'm putting up effects on there every week. I know that I know that I can offer quite a wide variety of things. So I feel comfortable saying I'm going to try with every company. I'm going to try every avenue I can.
So I didn't even know about the Real Underground. That's something that we need to talk about.
Yeah, it's really underground. It's a secret.
It's really underground. So talk to me about the Real Underground.
Well,
What where can people find that?
they can find it on the same link, jakekeane.com. If you go on there, it's literally just on there. I think it's the second or third tab. But it is just a small membership. You get at least 2 effects per month. There's other videos to do with mentalism. There's a bunch of stuff that's going to be uploaded on there. It has only just started, so there's an early bird option for anyone who wants to be an early kind of adapter of it. But there's a lot planned. There's actually a separate podcast entirely to do with it's kind of a mini documentary each episode on
Really?
weirder, darker subjects in magic. Yeah, there's a trailer up on my Instagram for it. There's some cool stuff in there.
That sounds amazing. And what's the price?
The early bird price, I believe, is $11.99 a month, and that's for the first 20 people or so. The regular membership is about 15 quid per month. I do have another option which is higher, which is around about 50 quid or something, but that's for people who actually want personal lessons. So I'm trying not to shill anything, but that's for if people want a personal lessons.
So the early bird is $11.99 a month.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and you get 2 effects. I'm looking at it now. You get 2 effects per month, a weekly group jam, a monthly secret podcast, 20% off all lectures, a private Discord community, and Discord access. That's very cool.
Thank you, dude. I mean, I know in this day and age, a lot of magicians have their own little memberships. And I mean, you yourself have the very, very successful Netrix. I'm never going to be able to create content on that level, but I know that there are some people who like what I do, so that option is always there.
There we go. Well, I've just signed up to that membership while I've been on the interview with you.
You make me very scared, Craig.
I'm now a member.
Oh,
I'm
God.
excited. I got an early bird. I'm even more excited. Boom. So that's how much faith I have in you, Jake. Like literally, when I found out you had a lecture, I didn't even question it. I just signed up for the lecture immediately while I was on the podcast with Lloyd, and I've just signed up to your membership. That is a no-brainer to me.
You did actually teach me a lesson when I listened to that podcast where you signed up, which I'm very, very appreciative about, by the way. Honestly, the fact that you have mentioned it a couple of times in videos and on the podcast, it means the absolute world to me. You're really a gentleman. But you did teach me a very valuable lesson when I listened to you book the ticket live. And you said, why the fuck isn't there a PayPal option? You've got to make things easy as possible for people.
Yep. Well, that was like as you were talking about it, I was signing up and there was a PayPal option. It was like, boom, done, sorted. I'm in. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Genuinely, that means a lot. I hope that you don't hate what's on offer there.
I'm not going to. I know I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it. So
there is some really cool stuff up there actually, and I put trailers up for each effect on my Instagram. I put one up yesterday, an effect that I performed on Lloyd, and people were going crazy about the video. So I'm excited to upload that in the next few days, the tutorial.
That's awesome. Can't wait to see that. I'll dive into that over Christmas. That'll be my Christmas treat. So you've got a whole bunch of stuff lined up. You're going to be bringing out everything that you're talking about. We're talking about physical releases. We're talking about stuff that you and you're doing together. That will all be on the same. That will be advertised on the same thing. JakeKeane.com. And that's where I found the link to the Real Underground. That's where you can find the link to the lecture. Everything is going to be up on there, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's the most basic. I have actual websites and stuff like that, but this works easier for me. This works easier for other people. You just go on jakekeane.com and there's just some very basic links. That's all you need.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing. And obviously, I noticed when I was on there, there's also a link to the Black Arts podcast. So if you want to listen to the Black Arts podcast, you can listen to it there. Blackpool's coming up around the corner. Jake, you're going to be at Blackpool this year?
Oh, of course. I'm very, very excited for Blackpool. The weird thing is, I am, because I've just left my job, I live alone, pay all the bills myself, big boy, but I'm not exactly flush at the moment. So I am going to Blackpool and I am staying somewhere, but I might not actually even be at the convention. I'm just going there I want to go jam with people.
That's great. You just want
I
to
haven't even bought my ticket yet. I don't mind saying I can't afford it at the moment.
I totally get that. I totally understand that. There's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of people that go along to Blackpool and they hang out in the Ruskin, and that's what some people go for. They go to Blackpool for the sessioning. They go to Blackpool for staying up until 4 o'clock in the morning. Not so much for the going to the lectures and stuff. 100%, totally with you. That's brilliant, man. So I've got one more question for you. So we've talked about the stuff that you're doing in 2024. What are your goals and aspirations? What's on your magical bucket list that you want to achieve in the next few years? Is there anything in particular outside of, obviously, you've got plans, you're going to be releasing a bunch of stuff. The Black Arts podcast is going to continue to grow. Your membership is going to continue to grow. We're going to see more tricks and releases from you. What else are you wanting to achieve? I want to lecture at Blackpool. I want to headline Magic Live. What sort of stuff are you wanting to achieve? If I could wave a magic wand and make it all happen, what would that be?
There was only one goal I had for 2024, and I've already achieved it. My one goal was to be on Magic TV with Craig Petty.
We're there, man. We're there. We are there, 100%.
No, my goal is to be happy. That's all I really care about. Make other people happy, put a little bit of love out into the world, and hopefully work with some cool people. I love jamming and creating magic. My aspirations pretty much just revolve around that. I want to work with cool people. I want to do something with you, Craig. I want to do something with anyone who's interested in working with me.
Hell yeah, I'd love to. It'd be a dream come true to work with you, Jake. That would be amazing.
And hopefully I'll get a few more lectures booked in. I think I've got 2 booked in at the moment, which I can't share too much about, but throughout next year there should be a few lectures. I want to put stuff out. I mean, it sounds so stupid to have such simple goals, but I just want to be there.
That's not silly. That's great. That's awesome. Just putting yourself out there, getting more people to know who you are. And I think that the material speaks for itself. When people see the stuff that you do and what you're capable of, people are just going to follow you to the ends of the earth and back again. I know that. And they really are.
Thank you.
I got one more question for you before we finish this off, actually. Do you feel, this is something me and Lloyd spoke about on the podcast, you mentioned earlier on that your style is very much it's not conducive to a gigging magician. You're not going to be there with, hey, my name's Jake and let me show you how this card is going to come to the top of the deck for the 437th time in the next 10 minutes. Instead, it's more conversational. It's kind of like, you don't know where the magic is beginning, but at some point magic happened and you were having a conversation and now you've just seen this mind-blowing thing. Is it real? Is it not? I'm not too sure. That's kind of the way that you approach things, which is great. You talked earlier on about the Dynamo show, and I know you've got a 2-part episode on the Black Arts podcast, so we don't need to dwell on this too much, but that was very much the style that Dynamo went for in that show as well. And up until very recently, That's not been the style that's been presented on television. The style that's been presented on television is very much hit and run. Hey, look at Dynamo's old stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk through HMV and disappear, and all that's going to be remain in my clothes. I'm gonna float over a nightclub audience. I'm going to take your phone in this bottle. I'm going to look at me. I'm amazing. And now it's very much a case of, hey, I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with you, and this is just going to organically happen, which is the style that you go for. Do you think that Dynamo doing this and creators like you, and in many ways Lloyd, coming to the forefront, do you reckon we're going to be seeing more of that moving forward? Because that's what's, why do so many magicians these days like hit and run style magic? It's because that's what they saw when they got into magic. They saw David Blaine, they saw Dynamo. With new people coming into magic now, seeing the sort of stuff that you're doing, seeing the sort of stuff that Dynamo did in that special, do you think we're going to see a switch in the way that magic is presented and performed? And will that impact the industry?
I don't necessarily have the authority to say whether something will impact the industry, but I do think that there is going to be more people who try and replicate that style. In the early 2000s, there were a lot of people walking around with goatees talking about how they could trick your mind.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be that copycat inspiration homage thing that happens. I like it. I think there's more than enough room for anything. I don't stake my flag anywhere. I don't care. I just love magic. And if someone wants to perform in that style, then I think that's awesome. If someone wants to perform their absolutely amazing, beautiful card routines still, then I think that's awesome too. I don't care. It's peace and love, man. Just do whatever you want so long as it's magic.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Perfect answer. Jake, this has been incredible. I have a feeling that this is not
Cop out answer.
Not at all. Not at all. I think this is incredible. I have a feeling that you're not going to. This is going to be probably the first of many times we're going to see you on Magic TV this year. I think that you're going to be making a lot of headway. You're going to be turning a lot of heads, and I think I'm going to be asking you to come back on the program a lot over the next year. But I really appreciate you coming on it now. I want people who've watched this interview to do four things. The first thing I want them to do is I want them to go down and leave a comment down below and let them know how amazing this interview was, because I've really enjoyed it, genuinely. It's been great finding out more about you. Second of all, I want people to consider going on jakekeane.com and clicking on that link and either subscribing to the membership or booking tickets to the lecture, because I know that's going to be incredible as well. And finally, I want people to go and check out the Black Arts podcast, because you and Lloyd do an amazing job. And if you're into creating magic, and if you're into magic creativity, this is a podcast that you want to listen to, because Lloyd and Jake will literally sit down every week and create magic, and you'll see that process and that way that they actually create between them. It's just incredible, and there's been nothing like that before. Yeah, I want everyone to do all of that, and I want you to carry on doing what you're doing, because you're on a upward trajectory. And I think that the momentum that you've created with everything that you've done and how you're putting yourself out there and everything that you're doing on social media and everything that you're doing with the podcast and everything else, I think that it's really going to pay dividends over the coming year. And I think, yeah, we're going to see a lot more people talking.
Thank you. Genuinely. The only reason that I've decided to do anything like this is because really nice people like yourself have said, no, go for it. It's worth it.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. And magic needs more people like you. There are people in magic, and I'm not going to say who. This is not the time and the place to do that. But I did a video recently about lecturers that turn up at magic conventions and they don't care. They literally turn up to the convention, they sell their stuff, and then they leave. And we've all got stories about lecturers like that. And what this industry needs, what conventions need, is people like you that just love magic. And yeah, it's a business for you. Of course it is. But also, you love magic. But if Blackpool Magic Convention are listening, if you book Jake, he's not going to disappear on you. He's going to be there the entire time, jamming with people and giving people the experience that you want someone to have if you book a lecturer for your convention. Somebody who's going to be present the entire time. I think that's so important. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
really,
if anything, you'll be trying to get rid of me.
it's like, right, we're going to get rid of everyone now. We're going. Jake, please leave at this point. That's awesome. Jake, thank you once again. Remember, guys, it's jakekeane.com. Go check it out. And Jake, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Craig. I really appreciate you lending a little bit of your platform to me.
Anytime. My platform is your platform. If you need to say anything, just let me know, and it's yours to use.
You're an angel.
No problem. Guys, do me a favor. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Go buy all of Jake's stuff and tell him how amazing he is. I will see you again very, very soon with another interview. But thanks for watching. I'm Craig. This is Jake, and this was Magic TV.